Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Hi, Rudy. How are you?
Hey, Mario, good to hear you. I'm good. Yeah, for me, it's actually good evening. I mean, I'm based in Frankfurt in Germany, so it's already 6 p.m. But,
Ah,
really great to spend my evening with you guys today. Great to be with you.
good deal, good deal. Great to be with you as well. Welcome to all of our attendees as well. Um, we want to give people just a few more minutes to join. Let's see. Do a time check. Oh, it's sorry. Let's go ahead and get started. It's already 4 past the hour. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mario Fortney. I'm one of the heads of process discovery here at Accelirate, and I'm also joined by Rudy Kuhn. He is the head of process mining at UiPath. So thank you for being here, Rudy. It's a pleasure to do this with you. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're here to discuss process discovery and analysis. But Rudy, I know that, at UiPath, you all do a lot of different things. So could you introduce and kind of talk about, the life cycle of automation within UiPath?
Absolutely. If you maybe switch to the next slide, then that would be easier for me.
Sure.
Because there are a lot of products, and guys, don't worry, I will not talk about all of these products. This would probably take all of our time, even more. But we are here today to talk about process mining. So I joined UiPath last year when the company I founded back in 2010 here in Frankfurt in Germany called Process Gold was acquired by UiPath. And before we joined UiPath, there were only 3 boxes: the blue, the orange, and the purple one. And so without any doubt, UiPath is the leading company or the market leader, the best company really to build, to manage, and to run our attended, our unattended boards, our new task boards, really great stuff. But the biggest challenge, as you probably know if you are in this business for some time, the biggest challenge really is to understand what kind of processes you or your clients really have and how to automate it. So this is why we added the discovery box to it, and you find process mining in the discovery box in the first gray one. And after we have successfully implemented process mining, or RPA, sorry, afterwards we want to measure the impact of RPA, or maybe basically every single improvement project you run, you want to know what the outcome is. So this is why also you find process mining in the measure box. And so we start with process mining and we end with process mining, and it's really a technology that fits perfectly with RPA.
Absolutely. Definitely want to make sure you close that loop.
Yeah. And talking about the loop, I think we have a loop on the next slide. Yeah. Sorry. This one, right. So just to give you guys an idea how we see process mining in the context of hyper automation. And by the way, hyper automation is one of the big trends that was announced by Gartner. So if you want to know more about hyper automation, please visit the Gartner website. There's a lot of content about it. But it's really about, so what we want to accomplish is we want first to understand, to discover the real processes. Mario will talk about how we do this, how we did it in the past. And I used to be a consultant with IBM and other companies in my former life before process mining, and now I know exactly how it works. But with process mining is different. So we use really a scientific technology to understand, to discover the processes. Then we use our platform to automate the processes. And after we've automated it, we can monitor and we can even react on any type or on any findings or issues we discover with process mining. But we have some time reserved for a live presentation. Stay on the line and we'll show you how it works.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. And so, so to provide some context or some background about how we got to that automated way of doing discovery, there is. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you're doing it now.
No, actually I want to do it later, but you already transferred the control to me, so maybe you take it back and we first start with your slides. Hey guys, this is live, this happens. So right, Mario,
right.
I think you prepared a few slides. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Yeah. All right, good deal, no problem. And so so traditionally, the way I kind of look at this is, you know, when you were in high school and you were taking calculus, and your teacher always wanted to teach you how to do the math by hand, and then they say you do it by hand, and then I show you how to do it with a calculator. So that's kind of the way I see discovery has transitioned over time. So traditionally, with process discovery, you're ultimately trying to answer 3 questions. So what should you automate, when you should automate, and how do you do it? So you would go through this entire process of understanding an entire organization, all the nomenclature, how they're organized, all the different functional areas, and then standardize on what do you want to accomplish with your automation program. What are the desired outcomes? Do you want to reduce costs, improve quality, increase productivity, et cetera, et cetera? And once you have that lay of the land understood, then you discover those processes, figure out what people are doing, like a day in the life of the different subject matter experts in the different functional areas within a department. You understand their resource allocation, the cycle times, the frequency, the volumes. You capture all this metric information, and then from there you ask some questions that will help you determine the feasibility of the automation. So is this something that you can apply an RPA solution to? So you conduct a lot of interviews, you meet with a lot of people, you ask a lot of questions to basically ultimately create what would be your automation pipeline, right? So here at Accelirate, to do that whole process, we have a methodology where we kind of do that standardized phase. We meet with all the different key stakeholders. We get down to that process level. We categorize those processes into 1 of 3 buckets. They're either a mechanical process, they're either an intelligent process, or it's a wasteful process. And there are different automation solutions that you can apply to those different types of processes. And so then we organize it all together. We say, okay, here are all of our mechanical tasks, here are all our intelligent tasks, here are our big ticket quick win items. We kind of put it all together, organize all of our puzzle pieces to now rationalize and say, if we want to move forward with our automation program, if we want to take action, what is the next thing that we're going to do? We rationalize and create that pipeline and that roadmap for what we're going to do next to start to realize the value of our automation program. And then once you do that and you've decided what you're going to do next, then we do process analysis. So then that becomes where you're conducting more interviews, where you're getting really into the weeds and documenting the click level steps of the process, understanding all the business logic, all the exception handling rules, figuring out what ROI did you propose that your automation solution would provide. You're creating the artifacts, your process maps, your process definition documents, and you're doing this whole process to work with the business to get sign off and say, hey, you've captured all the requirements of the automation. This is what the bot is going to do. You can start off development all the way from UAT to deployment. So that would be the traditional manual way of doing that entire process. But UiPath has definitely made a lot of innovation in as far as finding ways to automate that entire cycle of work. So Rudy, would you mind telling us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So if you please go to the next slide.
Sure.
You know, just to be very open with you guys. So for me, you know, process mining is a great technology, and I'm in this business for more years. And when I saw it for the very first time, I thought, wow, you know, it's amazing. So for me, process mining, the best picture to describe process mining is it's like in process X-ray. So what we do, we take data from different type of systems, you know, the digital footprints, and we have on the next slide, we'll talk about how it works. But basically, you know, if you take the right data and you upload it into our platform, you really get 100% transparency like X-ray. You know, if it hurts or if you want to avoid pain in the future, we take the data, we visualize what's really going on, and then you understand where the problems really come from. And you know, if you compare this to the traditional approach Mario just described, you know, with workshops and consultants, you save a lot of time, you save a lot of money, you get 100% transparency, and the best thing maybe about it is you can really do it over and over and over again. Because once we are connected to the data source, you know, we simply update the data, and you see the latest status of your process, and you are really on top of it. And on the next slide, Mario, we will see how this, you know, how this works. Typically, please click once. The data we use for process mining comes from different applications, or even if it's only one application, like SAP, we still talk about 170 or 200,000 database tables. Probably only Germans can come up with a system like this. It's insane. But still, for a process like purchase to pay, we need something like 40 or 50 tables. The next step, it really is to transform the data. So please, one more click. So what means to transform the data? We need to collect the different, the nuggets from all the different sources and create what we call an event log. And in this event log, we need a case ID, which is the unique identifier for a business case, like an invoice number. We need timestamps, and every time we find a timestamp in the system, every timestamp represents some sort of activity. So these are the only 3 mandatory attributes we load into our application, and then we get the visualization with all the processes. One more click, please. With all the processes, with the social networks and all kind of statistics. And different to to the very, very few competitors we have. So there's no competitor to UiPath, including process mining. There are only some smaller process mining vendors out there. But if you really compare this to our competitors, one more click. So this entire, well, I call it animal, really is the UiPath Process Mining platform. So we connect directly to the data source. The whole data transformation is part of the platform, the ETL layer, and the visualization, of course, as well. And when we go to the next slide, you will see, very, very simplified application architecture. So first of all, we run on-premise or in the cloud. It makes no difference. We have our readers where we connect to the data sources. Then we transform the data, we build this event log, and then we can load it into what we call an application. So basically an application, I will show it to you in a moment, is like a collection of dashboards, interconnected and really, providing great, great insights into your processes. And the application we have, or the applications we have, are just templates. So you can easily extend it, you can customize it with your corporate design, whatever you like. But I think we should really show you what I'm talking about, because this is still, PowerPoint, and we are in the visualization business.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It definitely will make sense, to put your eyes on it. So let's go ahead and let's take a look. Let's look at a demo.
Yeah, let's do it. So, great. Show my screen. Here we go. Mario, can you see my screen?
Yes. Yep.
Good. Perfect. Okay, guys, so what you see is, you see process mining, or UiPath Process Mining is a browser-based application. We don't have too much time, so, very, very briefly, we have this menu on the left. So every menu item has one or several tabs. Every tab is a dashboard like this with different components on it. And I have to admit that this is the most boring dashboard we have in our application, because it's only giving me some overview of the data. And I will keep it short. This is some real data from one of our customers here in Germany. And it's about the invoice approval process. Probably the simplest process you can think of. But surprisingly, we have 12 different activities like receive invoice, process invoice, we approve invoices, and we also pay invoices, which is great. And surprisingly, within 1 year, with 20,000 invoices, this company figured out 311 different ways, we call them variants, how this process can be run. Wow. And I want to take you back in time to the first quarter of 2019, because this is where the automation journey, or before the automation journey for our customers started. And surprisingly, still in the first quarter, you see that we have 165 different variants. And of course, we can look at the distribution of the variants down here. So there's always something we call the happy path, or the most common variant.
Of course.
And in this here, it represents 38% of all our cases, which is not a bad number. But when you go, for example, to variant 76, you see only 4 invoices. So what's the process? How does it look like? And to know what the process is, you only need to click on process. And now the magic happens, and the system, Mario, see that? So the system really automatically, or sometimes I say automagically, reconstructed the process from the data. Right. So we have the boxes, we call them activity. And we have the connections, we call them edges. So basically, this is only the most common way, which is equal to variant number 1. So if I click on variant number 1, it's all interactive or responsive. So it will create a filter for variant number 1, and I see only the 2,313 cases. Gotcha. But if I move the sliders to the right, the system will show me what else is happening. So if I release the mouse, oh, look at this. So you see what's happening? Most of the time it goes straight forward from process invoice to fine check of invoice. But sometimes, to be more precise, for 1,796 cases, we take a side step, we request some data, we check the contract, and only then we can perform the fine check of invoice.
Right.
Well, maybe I should mention that it's the fine check of invoice is not final all the time, because I know my data. So if I add one more edge, like the first exception, the system will show me, oh, well, it's not final because we see a loop. And if I hover my mouse over the activity in the upper third of this drop down of this pop-up box, you can see, we have an average repetition of 1, which is, to be expected, but we have a maximum repetitions of 9. So at least one invoice has 9 final check invoice.
Wow.
That's not really efficient. The same way, if I go to the next edge, next exception, the system will show me that maybe we have a little compliance issue here. You see what's happening?
So a lot of them are not going through that approval process.
Exactly, and this is supposed to be, to be a mandatory process step. So
absolutely,
what's going on here? We don't have the time, but I could easily, for example, simply click on the path, and if I click on it, the system will create a filter for all the cases following this path. We see the different variants. We could easily switch, for example, to suppliers to see, let's do it maybe. We switch, not case type, we switch to suppliers, we switch to case amount, everything, and we see the risk. But that's not what I want to show you today, because I want to show you how we can use this technology really to discover RPA potential. And if I add all my activities to the picture, and I also add all my edges, then we will actually see the 165 different variants of the same process in just one picture. And this always reminds me to a little bowl of spaghetti. Well, this is a very small one. I can tell you there are much bigger spaghetti bowls. But Mario, you are an RPA expert. Would you say that it's easy to automate this process?
No, absolutely not. This is definitely not where I would start. So if it was me doing it the manual way, right? You will find it would be very hard to find all of these different case variants, right? So our goal would be to identify those top 1 or 2. And from those top 1 or 2, you can start to scope out an automation that you can deliver very quickly, right?
Exactly. And that's the way, it's exactly what we want to do here. So when I switch to number of cases and I, for example, select the 5 most common variants, then look what happens. This process looks so much better, doesn't it? And we still have, and we have almost 5,000 cases. So this definitely, we can automate something here. But where to start? Typically in workshop, you would try to figure out, where are the bottlenecks? Where are we losing time? What is slowing down the process? And it will be a painful task, a painful workshop with people in the room. At the end of the day, you would have more processes than you have participants. But with process mining, it's only one click. We simply select, the average throughput time, and based on the dark color coding or shading, we see the bottleneck, and it's between receive invoice and process invoice. So this looks like a good automation candidate. And now assume, now let's travel in time again. Now we go to the next dashboard, our automation dashboard, and here we add again full complexity.
Because this is the part where you're closing the loop, right? Where we kind of did the discover phase, and then at the end we want to measure and see, well, what did we do after we did our implementation?
Exactly, but this is before we implemented RPA. So what we see, we are still in the first quarter of 2019. We see the 4,870 invoices. We still see our bottleneck. And because we read the data from our bots, we know, for example, that receive invoice in the first quarter was already fully automated. Same applies for pay invoice. But as you can see, activities like process invoice, there's 0% automation rate. And we still see the bottleneck. And if I get this right, so let me switch over to costs, then we can see that every execution, every invoice we process in our most common variants costs us $98, which is a lot of money. But when we switch to the second quarter, in the second quarter, this customer started to implement UiPath.
Right.
So first of all, you can see that process invoice now has a slightly different color coding. because at the end of the second quarter, 24% of all our invoices were already processed automatically. And the throughput time, you see that it already dropped from 9 days to 7 days.
Yep.
More important, the cost for, basically for every variation, but let's look at variation number 1, dropped from 98 to 81. And when I go to the third quarter, it gets really exciting because now you can see process invoice is fully automated by 100%. We have even started to automate the fine check of invoice with 34%. And the throughput time now dropped from, first of 9 days in the first quarter, and 7 days in the second, and now to 34 minutes only in the third quarter.
That is incredible.
We started with 98, 81, and now less than 30.
Right. And that's the power. That's the power of process mining, to be able to capture that future state and that actual benefit that you're realizing through your automation program.
But I want to show you, one more thing, how we actually close the loop. So this was about discovery. This was about, about monitoring, and we have a lot of more monitoring capabilities like our tagging. So tagging is a unique way, because we are totally in control of our data transformation. We can apply any type of business rules, like for example, SLA violations, which is very easy. We expect every invoice to be processed within 30 days. And it's great to see that we have only 130 SLA violations in the third quarter compared to the 503 we had before. This is great. Well, it's good. It's not great, because great would be no SLA violations at all. And what we did now with we closed the loop, so we can now actually use, connect to our action center in the UiPath platform to basically, either inform people that there are cases late or something is wrong, or automatically trigger bots to do something about it. And let me show you how this works. For that, I go to a different demo, and I have a bookmark here. So we are at the latest day of our data, the last day of our data, and we see we have one, well, again, unwanted compliance issue. So one case managed to bypass the approval step. Oh, and I need my orchestrator. Sorry, I forgot to load it. So yeah, again, this is live. So let's go to the orchestrator. All right. I go to my action list. Well, okay, there's one case 3 hours ago, but basically, this should be empty. But when I go back to this one, and I, typically we would discover this compliance issue every time we transform the data. And typically we do this once a night, or we can do it every hour if you like, but typically, the majority of our customers transform and updates the data cube every night. But we don't have the time to wait until tomorrow with you guys. So that's why we have a manual button I can now push, and it will simulate, basically what happens automatically overnight. So if I push the button, what is happening now, the one case which has no approval step was sent to my action center. So when I go back, I can refresh it, and you can see that a few seconds ago, that was my click. A new case was opened with invoice approval missing. Oh, that's not good. So what can I do? I can click on it, and it will show me the master data from process mining, the data that was sent over, my case ID. It's only a small invoice, and I know the supplier. If not, if I'm uncertain about the invoice, for example, I can open it in the document management system. So this is just for presentation purposes. It's just a dummy invoice. Yeah. Or if I assign this case to myself and I say, okay, I take care of it, I can, for example, open it directly in SAP. So one click would take me to the SAP system, would bring up this case, and I can do the approval manually. But again, we don't have the time today. So what I can do, I can basically just tell a bot, to resolve the issue, to approve this invoice. So if I click on this one, I now started the bot in the back end of UiPath. Then all I need to do is now to confirm that this case is complete. Here we go. And basically my, the case that was new is gone now. And my inbox should be empty. Well, it's not because of the case 3 hours ago. So I could do the same here, but I think you get the idea what we do. So
absolutely.
Yeah, basically, that's what I wanted to showcase today. How we are using the technology of process mining in our Hype automation platform. First of all, to discover the processes based on data, to visualize, all kind of bottlenecks, compliance issues, and most important, the RPA potential. And after we have implemented UiPath, or basically after we have improved the process, we want to measure the impact of our change projects or an RPA on the process. And again, we can use the same technology, and we can really close the loop, not only to to discover any type of issues, but really to resolve them.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's really powerful. That's really powerful. I guess do we typically, we can open the floor for questions, or?
Yeah,
let's do it.
Go right ahead and start doing questions.
So one question would be for you, Rudy. Would you recommend the on-premise or the in the cloud version of UiPath Process Mining for greater data security? And which would you recommend for greater performance?
Well, I think for data security, definitely, I would not recommend to load the data into, let's say, in a public cloud or whatever. So if you set up your private cloud, I think you should be perfectly safe. And for greater performance, of course, scaling, the server environment in the cloud, like on Amazon Azure, Amazon AWS, or on Azure or Google, whatever you prefer. That's easier maybe than within your own data center.
Gotcha. And one last question: would you recommend process mining a process first and then creating an automation, or creating an automation and then process mining the created automation if there are issues with that implementation?
Well, if you already know what to automate and how to automate it, then maybe you don't need process mining. If you really, if you trust, if you can rely on the, let's say, your diagnosis, and you know what you want to automate, and then of course you can start with automation first and then use process mining only for discovery. Or you can start both projects at the same time, because the data we are dealing with and the data that is stored in your database systems and log files of your applications will not change because of because of the automation. It will simply, there will be different timestamps. It will be hopefully more efficient and less risk and faster overall. But really, typically, of course, I'm a big fan of process mining, so I would recommend to start with process mining, because I always like to have the diagnosis before I think about how to solve a problem. First, I want to understand the problem, and then I will solve it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think those are the questions that we have in the chat, and I see that we're a little bit over time. So I guess I'd like to thank everyone for joining today. I hope that this was informational and beneficial for your automation program, and any questions that you may have about process discovery, process mining, process analysis, et cetera, et cetera. So Rudy, it was definitely a pleasure to work with you and to conduct this webinar with you. And I look forward to staying connected. And thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Stay safe. Enjoy your time. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. Thank you.